is CGTN, China Global Television Network. Live from London, this is The World Today.
Hello, I'm Jamie Owen. Welcome to the programme. Our top stories: millions of people around the world take to the streets demanding action on climate change.
It means the end of our livelihoods and our homes.
The Maldives Special Envoy on Climate tells this programme why her country will disappear without global action.
This is a blue-collar blueprint to rebuild America, and it's long overdue.
And United States lawmakers finally approved Joe Biden's trillion-dollar infrastructure plan. From Sydney to Seoul, protesters around the world in more than 200 demonstrations are marching in the Global Day of Action for Climate Justice. At the heart of it all is Glasgow, the host city of the COP26 Climate Summit. Tens of thousands of people there have taken to the streets calling for more urgency to tackle global warming. Well, let's talk to our correspondent Andrew Wilson, who's there for us. Andrew, the politicians' deliberations now seem somewhat overshadowed by people protests, not just there, but all around the world.
Well, that's right, Jamie. I mean, it's a cold November afternoon here. The light is starting to fade here in Glasgow, but still I can see thousands of people making their way slowly into the park. You can see behind me there's a sound stage, there are speeches, there's music. It's a very good-natured gathering, I have to say, but it's getting bigger by the minute as more and more people come. The organisers are saying they think they've got well over 100,000 people. It's too early to get an official count on that, but that's certainly a pretty impressive centre stage demonstration considering those that are going on around the world as well, from Sydney, South Korea, cities in Europe, Brussels we've seen, and I'm sure once the time zone shifts westwards, there'll be demonstrations in some American cities as well. And it is, if you like, their reply, their referendum on what has been a week of impressive sounding pledges on deforestation, on coal, on methane, on private finance for initiatives, which they have roundly declared here to a person in this crowd as greenwash and overestimated and short on reality and authenticity.
Andrew, is there an understanding there in the Climate Summit Conference Centre itself that perhaps momentum on climate now lies not with those international government representatives, but outside the conference walls with protesters on every continent?
That's how it works. I think a large number of the technical delegates working on the different deals that they're trying to sort out at this stage would be quite happy for everyone here to come into the centre and lend their voices, to give them the momentum, to bend the politicians further in the direction they want them to go. It's always been the tension in environmental pressure and environmental decisions once it became clear that the world needed to act together in some shape or form to fix what was happening to the conditions around the planet, that there's always been this tension between the reluctance of politics to do anything too large too soon and the pressure from the environmental and scientific community who want things to move faster, as fast as possible, because they recognise too well the emergency that the planet faces. That dynamic has existed uneasily at first, but works better now, and both sides are getting used to that. And I think we can tell from the rhetoric this time round, the substance of the deals is still a bit thin. There's an awful lot of reworking being done, particularly on coal and deforestation after the excitement of the first 2 days. But the momentum has changed, the language is changing, and politicians are, whether it's reluctant in their hearts or not, accepting that the way forward lies in tackling this problem, and that has only been helped by the pressure they face from their constituents outside.
Andrew Wilson at COP26 in Glasgow, thank you very much. Well, on the other side of the world, activists in Australia have held a march with a giant koala float to highlight the impact of climate change there. Demonstrators in Melbourne and Sydney have urged the Prime Minister Scott Morrison to do more to cut methane emissions and end the burning and mining of coal. Almost 100 countries at COP26 signed up to the global methane pledge this week, but Australia refused to join. Hundreds of people have gathered on the streets of South Korea's capital, Seoul, rolling an inflatable red ball to symbolize a burning earth. Protesters criticized participants at COP26 for only talking and not delivering binding agreements to combat the climate crisis. Activists from the environmental group Extinction Rebellion have blocked a road in Brussels, with some attaching themselves to cars. They're demanding greater climate protection from the Belgian government as extreme weather events battered Europe earlier this year. Meanwhile, in Poland, around 200 energy workers have protested against plans to phase out coal. At the United Nations Climate Summit this week, Poland pledged to move towards renewable energies, with all coal-fired power plants to close by 2049. It's the second biggest user of coal in Europe, after Germany. Well, the endless rounds of negotiations at COP26 in Glasgow have added urgency for the world's most vulnerable countries. Without fixing rising temperatures and rising sea levels, the low-lying island nation of the Maldives will simply cease to exist. I've been talking to Sabra Nordin, the Republic of Maldives Special Envoy for Climate Change.
Our country is 99% ocean, and the average height of the islands are 1.5 meters above sea level. So the climate crisis is existential for us. Rise in sea level, ocean acidification, breakdowns in our coral, it means the end of our livelihoods and our homes. So it really is an existential crisis for us.
What emergency measures do you have in place, or are you working on, to try to protect your population against these risks?
Well, we have put in place more measures to increase our resilience. So more conservation of more protected areas in the Maldives, phasing out single-use plastic, those kinds of things. But emergency measures require a lot of money, and that is not something that the Maldives or many other small island states have, especially to deal with something as large and complex as the climate crisis, which involves potentially, adapting to a whole new system of doing things, or even moving in some cases.
How vital is protection of marine life and ecosystems for the livelihood of the people of Maldives? And how are the rising sea temperatures affecting the atoll coral?
Well, our main industries, tourism and fisheries, depend on healthy coral reefs. And a healthy biodiversity, a healthy ocean is vital to maintaining basically life in the Maldives. So for us, protected areas gives us a chance for everybody to thrive. But no matter what we do in the Maldives, that's not going to be enough to save us. If temperature rise continues above 1.5 degrees, that's it. That can't help us. We need the world to agree that 1.5 is the limit that we need to stick to. And it's also crucial because we need the support to be able to live in that 1.5 world. We're already facing challenges, and it's 1.1, 1.2 degrees, and we don't have the means to adapt to this new scenario ourselves. We need world leaders, we need the entire community really to commit to supporting small island states and other vulnerable countries.
What is your reading of COP26? Do you sense success or failure, urgency or something in between?
I want to be optimistic. And I think, last week's pledges of new financial commitments and agreements towards protecting biodiversity, they are helpful, but they're not enough, especially for small island states. We're nowhere near the emission targets that we need to be. We really need that to be limited to 1.5, so which means more ambition and more urgency when it comes to emission cuts. And we haven't reached the $100 billion that was committed to islands like the Maldives and to vulnerable countries like ourselves. So those are things that really need to come through.
When you return to the Maldives, what will you report back from COP26 in Glasgow?
I would like to report that there is a future for us in the Maldives and that the world is ready to stand by us in order for us to remain there.
After months of political wrangling, US lawmakers have finally approved a $1 trillion infrastructure spending program to boost the economy after COVID-19. It's a central plank of Joe Biden's presidency and passed the House of Representatives by a majority of just over 20 votes. Well, let's talk to our correspondent, John Terrett, who's been watching events for us. John, this really is a landmark victory for President Biden, isn't it?
You know, Jamie, I think we have to give him his day in the sun. I really do. I absolutely do think so. And the reason that I think that is because other presidents have trod this ground before and they've failed. We haven't had an infrastructure bill like this in America in anyone's living lifetime, really. So that in itself, I think, is an extraordinary thing. Now, it is the $1.2 trillion basic infrastructure bill that has now passed the House after sitting there for 3 months. So it's going to be pump priming money from the federal government for roads like the West Side Highway in New York, you can see behind me now, bridges, ports of entry, tunnels, even extending broadband right across the country. And it brings with it, from the president's point of view, good, well-paying union jobs. That's what he likes. He's very much a union president. Now, Nancy Pelosi, who is the Speaker of the House, had been looking to do more yesterday than she was able to achieve. Nonetheless, late last night, there was applause and cheering in the chamber when the votes finally came in. And this morning, President Biden has been speaking in his man of the street, blokey language. He said he can't wait to get the shovels out and start digging. Here's more of what he had to say.
In an economy that's changing so rapidly, this bill is for you. The vast majority of the thousands of jobs that will be created don't require a college degree. There'll be jobs in every part of the country. Red states, blue states, cities, small towns, rural communities, tribal communities. This is a blue-collar blueprint to rebuild America, and it's long overdue.
Now, this is the smaller of two bills out there, okay? So it's heading to his desk. That's good. There's another one, though, worth $1.75 trillion and possibly a lot more than that, we'll have to see, which we think of here as the social infrastructure bill. Now, that's stuck in the Senate at the moment, and Nancy Pelosi was hoping to bring that to a vote yesterday, Friday, as well. She couldn't do it, and the reason is people within her party want to examine the cost of it all very much more. So it's been postponed, any kind of vote on that, until the week of November the 15th. Jamie?
So, John, just to be clear, we understand one huge bill has gone through, so there is the second bill, and that's still pretty much in no man's land.
Yes, and it's all been so messy. You know, it's been a battle between progressives in the Democratic Party who really want to spend much more on social infrastructure, and the moderates who are very wary of that. I think that the two sides are coming together. That would be my assessment. I think they're nearly there. But you have to remember, this bill is halved in size. It was $3.5 trillion. It's now $1.75 trillion, maybe a bit more. It has in it squillions of dollars for climate change, trying to cure that. Money for childcare. No parent will spend more than 7% of their income on childcare. Healthcare. They've put back in this bill, this big bill, in the last couple of days. Money for paid leave for parents. Immigration clauses are in there. Work permits for those who've been here illegally since 2011. But some of that may have to be taken out because Joe Manchin, a senator from West Virginia, Kyrsten Sinema, a senator from Arizona, and a handful of others are really not happy about the size of this bill still, even though it's much smaller than it was. And they want the General Accounting Office to tell them line by line exactly what the spending will actually mean. And they can't do that quickly. That's why it's all been postponed, the discussion on this one, until November the 15th. Finally, I'm afraid I predict at least a couple of weeks of Democratic wrangling over this to come. Such is the way it is. But they know that time is not on their side. They had a serious election defeat last Tuesday. They had a near miss in New Jersey. Political season is here. The elections for Congress are a year away, but campaigning will start on the 1st of November. If they don't get it done by the turn of the year, it'll be very difficult to get it done next year. Jamie?
John Terrace in New York, thank you very much. You're watching CGTN. Still ahead, India's deadly air pollution. Delhi suffocates in smog after ignoring a fireworks ban.
Events have consequences. Words create impact.
One more offensive in a long line of battles that's been ongoing for more.
Just got to be careful. Some gunshot. Excuse us.
The world today matters for your world tomorrow.
The number of casualties is growing quickly.
Why, this is one of the hardest hit towns in the region.
The world today, every day on CGTN.
The world has changed under the pressure of the pandemic. For many of us, life is returning to some kind of normal. As we're adapting to changes in all of our lives, let Global Business Europe be your guide to the new normal. Join us weekdays on CGTN.
Climate change is happening right now. World leaders are holding vital talks that will change the course of humanity. Action could save millions of lives. Failure could cost many more. Do they have the will to act quickly? Does the climate have the time to wait? Follow full coverage from the COP26 climate talks here on CGTN.
Around the world, citizens and reporters have joined our Zero Waste Challenge to examine how green their lifestyles, cultures and government really are. See their video diaries, fascinating insights and local solutions as they try to achieve zero waste. That's #Zero Waste Challenge on social media and online at cgtn.com/Europe.
This week on Razor and a COP26 special, monitoring forests using robots, the weakening of a major ocean current, and reaching for the skies.
We need to change the spirit of the people. We can do it. We can change. We get much more power from renewable energy than what we get from fossil fuel.
Hello, welcome back. A reminder of our top stories. Millions of people around the world take to the streets demanding action on climate change. The Maldives Special Envoy on Climate tells this programme her country will disappear without global change. And a $1 trillion infrastructure bill wins approval in the US Congress in a significant victory for President Biden. At least 8 people have died after crowds attending a concert in Texas in the United States surged towards the stage. The accident happened at the Astroworld Festival in Houston during a performance by the rapper Travis Scott. Officials have described scenes of panic, with some concertgoers experiencing cardiac arrest in the crush.
What we do know is that at approximately 9 o'clock, 9:15, the crowd began to compress towards the front of the stage, okay? And that caused some panic, and it started causing some injuries. People began to fall out, become unconscious, and it created additional panic.
The United States government has ordered the departure of non-essential employees and their families from Ethiopia as the war between Tigray rebels and government forces intensifies. This all comes as Ethiopia's Prime Minister tweeted, "There are sacrifices to be made to salvage the country." The US order came a day after 9 rebel groups said they would join forces with the Tigray rebels to oust the government. A state of emergency has now been declared in the capital, Addis Ababa. At least 91 people have died and dozens more have been injured after an oil tanker exploded in the capital of Sierra Leone. The accident happened in the centre of Freetown when the tanker collided with another vehicle. Several of the victims are said to have been passengers travelling on a bus. Several people have been injured in a knife attack on a high-speed train in the German state of Bavaria. It happened between the southern cities of Regensburg and Nuremberg. The police say a 27-year-old Syrian man has been arrested. At least 8 police officers in London have been injured following clashes with protesters on Bonfire Night. Demonstrators gathered near Parliament to let off fireworks and protest against the government. Several people have been arrested. Air pollution in India's capital, Delhi, has soared to dangerous levels after Diwali festival celebrations. It comes as residents ignored a fireworks ban as they celebrated the Hindu festival of light, causing smog and toxic pollution. As Ravinder Bauer now reports, poor air quality is causing severe health problems, particularly among children and the elderly.
India's capital, Delhi, is once again choked. Since Thursday, Delhiites are waking up under a blanket of toxic smog. Air pollution levels are in the severe category, making it tough for the city to breathe. For elderly people like Renuka Gautam, it's lockdown time again. She's confined indoors to prevent respiratory issues triggered by rising levels of pollutants in the air.
Since it's polluted outside, I can't go for my morning walks or anywhere else. When I go out, I feel breathless. I have to turn on the air purifier and stay at home. For me, it's like lockdown days.
Pollution got worse on Friday, a day after festival of Diwali, as people violated the ban on firecrackers. Bursting of crackers worsened the air quality, which was already bad due to the farm stubble burning in the neighboring states and the weather conditions.
What's happening over the last few days is that the meteorological conditions are changing. The wind speeds are dropping, the temperature is dropping, which is leading to stable conditions and accumulation of some of these pollutants near the Earth's surface because of development of the inversion layer.
The smog is impacting respiratory health of residents. People are complaining of itchy throat and eyes and breathlessness.
The ones who have chronic lung problems like COPD, asthma, or the ones who have heart conditions are actually having a major issue as far as breathlessness is concerned, cough, chest discomfort, and a lot of them needing urgent medical attention. So our advice is to people to stay indoors as much as possible. And once you step out of the house, just wear a mask.
Experts say that Delhi's air quality will continue to be at dangerous levels for some time. They warn that bad air can lead to more severe cases of COVID-19. Ravinder Baba, CGTN, Delhi.
Thousands of people have protested against vaccine mandates and a proposed pandemic bill in Melbourne. Australia's states have introduced mandatory measures for key workers, with the unvaccinated barred from working or leisure activities. Protesters are also angry about the yet-to-be-approved bill, which would give state officials the power to declare a pandemic and make public health orders, replacing state of emergency powers, which are due to expire in December. New Zealand has passed 200 daily cases of coronavirus for the first time since the pandemic began. In the last 24 hours, the country has announced 206 new cases, 200 of them in the city of Auckland. The rise in cases has led to concerns that the outbreak could overwhelm the healthcare system. China's health authorities say they'll continue a zero-tolerance policy towards COVID. The policy has seen lockdowns imposed in affected areas. The authorities say the outbreak has spread to 20 provinces with over 900 cases reported. Belgium is bringing together hunters, farmers and researchers with one common objective: to repopulate the partridge population after years of decline. An iconic bird, the partridge is a good indicator of the ecological health of farming areas. Where it thrives, so too biodiversity. Tony Waterman reports.
When the season is right, Eric Kloot enjoys nothing more than going on a hunt with his dogs Kyra and Berthe. Most of the time he's searching for small game, like pheasants, ducks and hares. But in recent years, he's become increasingly interested in not only hunting animals, but also in helping to keep them alive.
This is a field where I sow wheat with sunflowers, and this has to stay. It's good for food for the land birds in wintertime.
Eric, who is also a farmer, has sown this sprawling patch of land behind his house with a special mix of herbs, flowers, and grains. It provides food in the winter and nesting corners in the spring for low-lying birds. He's also active in hunting predatory animals, which can pose a threat to bird life.
To some, it might appear to be a contradiction. A hunter who is also a staunch conservationist. But Eric is one of about 50 hunters stretched across 6 European countries who have banded together to help repopulate one specific bird species, the partridge.
Once ubiquitous across Europe, the gray partridge population has plummeted 94% since 1980. Biologist Yasmin Verzilen says intensive farming has wiped out habitats and hiding spots, while a spike in the use of herbicides and insecticides has killed off vital food sources for the birds.
The partridges, it's part of an ecosystem, so if one species does badly, other species will be influenced by that as well. The partridge is a meal for a lot of different predators. Their eggs are meals for different predators. So definitely this has had an impact on other species as well.
A bellwether for the entire ecosystem, hunters, farmers, and nature conservationists alike have been keen to boost partridge numbers, partnering up to provide food and shelter for the birds. Then, twice a year, Yasmin and her team canvass the area searching for the often well-concealed bird. On this evening, luck was on our side. 3 partridges briefly gliding over a sunburnt field before disappearing once again. In the 5 years since the project launched, Yasmin says there have been noticeable differences.
We have seen increases in insect biomass, in the breeding bird territories, in overwintering birds. There is one of our areas here in Belgium that has seen, I think there's at least triple the amounts of partridges there as there were before.
Back on the farm, Eric has noticed changes as well. The herbs and grains that he has sown are not only attracting more birds, but are also fattening up other animals, which has helped make hunting more sustainable.
The hares here now, they have a lot more fat in their body. So it means that they can, in a bad winter, they can more easily survive.
The iconic partridge bringing together an unlikely mix of people to impact an entire ecosystem. Tony Waterman, CGTN, Flanders, Belgium.
The headlines again. Millions of people around the world march to demand action on climate change. The Maldives Special Envoy on Climate tells this program her country will disappear without global change. And a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill gets approval in the United States Congress in a major victory for President Biden. And that's it for The World Today. Thank you for watching. We're on smart TV apps, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, YouTube, Dailymotion, CGTN.com and the CGTN app, and in the UK on Preview. More news at the top of the hour. Coming up next, The Agenda with Stephen Cole. But from me, goodbye.